Why do objects get hot or cold? To understand this, let's first think about what is heat actually. So, heat is a short form we use for heat energy. And what is heat energy? It's the energy stored in a material because of the movement of atoms and molecules inside of it. So, the faster the atoms and molecules are vibrating and just jostling around inside a material, tells us how much heat energy is stored in that material. So now that we know what is heat energy, we can safely assume that the larger the object, the more heat energy it will contain. So let's consider a large glacier, a large iceberg, and on other side a hot cup of coffee. So which one of these two objects will have more heat energy? If the iceberg is very large and large enough, surely it will have more heat energy as compared to a hot cup of coffee. It might sound counterintuitive, but let me explain why it is so. It is simply because the iceberg is very, very large and it contains a lot more moving atoms and molecules. And due to the sheer quantity of these moving parts inside that object, the heat energy stored, the kinetic energy stored in that material is more than a hot cup of coffee, even though it feels hot to you. But as a whole, it will have less heat energy than a very large iceberg. So I think you kind of get the idea of what actually is heat energy. So now, why do objects get hot? It's simply because there there is a lot of motion of atoms and molecules inside that material, and when suppose you touch a hot material, you will feel heat because the heat kinetic energy will be transferred from the atoms of that material to the atoms and molecules of your finger. So if you touch a hot cup of coffee, the ceramic will be hot and the atoms and molecules are vibrating inside in a very random way, but the kinetic energy will be very high, and as soon as you touch that material, the atoms will start knocking out the atoms of your finger, and it will happen very fast. And because the atoms and molecules of your finger will start moving around a lot faster suddenly than they were doing previously, your nerves will feel a sensation, and due to the increased kinetic energy, and it will be transferred to your brain, which will be interpreted as heat energy or temperature increase. So when you heat a pan over a stove, the heat is transferred by the burning gas to the air around it, and also directly to the container. So the container is in contact with hot air, and due to convection, heat is transferred in this way. So let's go back a little and let me tell you the ways in which heat is transferred. It is transferred by three ways: conduction, convection, and radiation. Conduction is when two solid objects come together in contact, and they transfer heat to each other. So two solid objects are touching each other and transferring heat, that is conduction. Convection deals with liquids and gases. So convection is when a hot gas transfers heat to another hot gas or a hot liquid. Suppose you pour hot water into cold water, the heat will be transferred by convection. Similarly, when you use your convection heater in your room to heat up the air, the heater will blow out hot air into the room and thus uses convection to heat up the air inside the room. Now the last part is the radiation, and the radiation deals with neither solids nor liquids nor gases. It just deals with empty space or vacuum. So radiation is the way in which the heat is transferred through the vacuum. Just take as an example of the sun. How does heat or the sun's infrared radiation comes from space? It's because of the radiation which comes directly through the space. It doesn't need a medium. It travels at the speed of light, and the way heat travels in vacuum is through infrared radiation, and it's just another kind of radiation. Just as visible light is, you can see the visible light but you cannot see the infrared radiation, but it travels at the same speed, which is the speed of light. So these are the three ways in which heat is transferred, and now you know that how does one object gets hot or cold. It gets hot because of the increased movement of atoms and molecules inside of it, and if you want to cool it down, you have to take out the kinetic energy from that object. So when you take out the kinetic energy and suppose you transfer it to some other object, the kinetic energy will be transferred to the other object, and the atoms and molecules won't be moving as fast as they were previously, and so the energy will go down and it will get colder and colder. But that energy has to go somewhere, so it will be either dissipated into the environment or transferred to some other object which might be in contact with that object. So as you know, energy, the laws of conservation of energy, the energy cannot be created and neither be destroyed. It can only be transferred from one form to another or one object to another. So here the object obtains heat energy from some other object or some other way, and to cool it down, the heat has to go to some other object or has to be converted into some other kind of energy. For example, you are converting heat energy to electricity. Suppose there is a way to do that. So in that example, in that situation, heat will be converted to electricity. It won't be transmitted to other object. So the object will cool down and convert heat to electricity. So that is a short video about what is heat energy, and how they are related, and how is heat transferred from one object to another. Conduction, convection, and radiation. See you in the next video.